All right, everybody, going to have a little Facebook Live with Dr. Webster today. We're talking about some of the top fitness trends of 2019. Very important that you pay attention to this because this is information you don't get from mainstream media. It's what we will share with you. The good, the bad, the ugly when it comes to certain fitness trends that people follow. And let's see, we've got a couple of people on. I'm waiting for Dr. Webster to get on, so just bear with me. Did you know that wearing certain wearable technology will not benefit you if you trick the science? Yes, you can have false data. We'll discuss some of that. Let's see some of the other fitness trends. I just wrote this and sent it to my assistant. So when we get downloaded, we will add all of these to the YouTube video or the Facebook video. And so the first one, while we're waiting for Dr. Webster to get on, is wearable technology, smartwatches, these watches or these monitors that you wear on your waist or on your ankle to check your steps per day. Well, there are a lot of people, believe it or not, you may or may not be one of these people, you may have heard of some of these people who wear these technology on their head, on their wrist, and they're using it for counting steps, if you will, when they're brushing their hair. Seriously, they're tricking their own results as if they took 10,000 steps a day, but they're brushing their hair and they're not really using the technology the way it was designed for you to count your steps per day. And so who are you really tricking? You wonder why you're not losing weight, not getting healthier, but hey, I'm taking 10,000 steps a day. Yeah, because you're doing all these different things with your hands that counts the steps, or counts the monitor. In addition to that, a lot of this wearable technology is claiming to check the health of your heart, the health of your entire body. Excuse my dog, he's playing with his bone. He wants to go out. It's raining in Dallas, and he's having a little fun. Oh my God, buddy. So I don't know where Dr. Webster is, why he's not on here yet, but I invited him. Anyway, so be careful with some of the wearable technology that you have. ACSM, American College of Sports Medicine, created this survey of all these fitness professionals, and they are the ones, excuse me, that's the end of that. They're the ones who said, okay, we're going to look at these trends now, and here are the top trends for 2019. I looked at them, and I thought some of them were complete crap. Hold on, buddy. Because they're not beneficial for us. So I narrowed this down, these trends, to the top 6 trends of 2019. Here goes Dr. Webster. Let's invite him. And there we go. So we said we would do this at 1 o'clock today. I was a few minutes early. Let's let him get on and catch up because I want to get to the next one of the top trends of 2019 through this survey of fitness professionals. And again, some of it I think is complete crap, but we'll go through that here in a little bit when Dr. Webster gets on, taking longer than normal. So I'm going to move on to number 2. Number 2 is group training. Oh, by the way, if you have any questions or comments and you want to interact with us, I'd love to hear from you. I'm on my page now, so I can see if any of you, hey Doc, I can see if any of you write a message. I already started, Doc, because I thought we were going to start a couple minutes early. My fault. No big deal.
No problem.
I sent you the top 6 that I want to go through for the trends.
I saw that.
And I already shared the first one about wearable technology. My concern about wearable technology is that it's not as accurate as they claim, so don't rely on it.
Wearable technology?
Yeah.
Yeah. I'm not a huge fan because I think it's basically something that distracts people from the real goal. When you want to work out, you don't want to be constantly worried about your watch or worried about your phone or worried about all these things. I think it's something that basically makes people pretend like they're working out or doing something, but not really working out as hard as they would be had they just left the technology at home. That's kind of my opinion. A lot of times people do the same thing in the workplace. They have all these apps and all this technology and all these different social media platforms, and so they're busy. But at the end of the day, they never get anything done. So it's like, don't be busy, get something done. And I don't think the technology is really nearly as helpful as it's made out to be.
So I'm going to be a little incongruent and say it's case by case. You and I are data guys. We love data. We make adjustments to our life based on data. And I think there are a lot of data people out there who will look at this technology, even if it's inaccurate. So what I was mentioning earlier is if they're wearing these pedometers or this wearable technology, it tells you how many steps you're taking. You're supposed to wear it on your waistband or your ankle, and people are wearing it on the wrist and they're brushing their hair, right? So they're kind of getting over on themselves and getting over on the technology. It's not really benefiting them whatsoever. But if you're able to have a baseline, right? It's all relative, right? Regardless of whether it's 100% accurate or not, if you understand where you started and that you've improved with some of this technology, I think it can be very beneficial, provided you're not trying to trick it for your own benefit, because you're really not going to benefit as much as you think you are.
Yeah, and to think that you're going to get a better workout because you wear some kind of $100 or $200 accessory, you need to get that out of your mind. It doesn't work that way. Effort is how you get a good workout, not technology.
Well, there's how do you enhance your workouts? How do you get better workouts with the technology maybe also? And so let's go to number 2, group training.
Yeah.
Group training is always going to be successful, I think. It's always going to be popular, but there's something that gave it a little spike in popularity. And this is my opinion, that's those Peloton commercials.
Yeah. I was going to say the exact same thing. No doubt about it.
Yeah, it's the subscription model. You're working out in a class, but it's the convenience of your home. You're working out really hard. People are pushing you. You don't have to be in a classroom. You don't have to go to a gym, but you're still doing a group training class. The only real disadvantage of that is nobody can tell you what you're doing wrong.
Yeah, in certain cases, in the case of the Peloton, I agree completely. I think it's a good thing if that's what it takes to get you moving. Some people just don't like to do something unless they're with other people, and if that's you, great. Take advantage of group classes. In the case of the Peloton, yeah, you're not going to get the one-on-one help that you need, but in some cases, people might be offering, like a personal trainer might be offering a group class, 5 to 10 people, and he can help you with your individual form. If he sees you out of the group, say, oh, you're not doing this right, let's flatten your back or do whatever it takes to get your form right. So you can get some one-on-one. Even though you're not getting true one-on-one the whole hour, maybe, you still can get some help, and it's going to cost you a lot less to be part of a group of 5 to 10 than it would be to one-on-one with that trainer. So it can be good for someone like that needs a little bit of help.
There are people who are designed genetically to be mathematicians. They're incredible at physics. And the academia is their focus in life, and often they have struggles when you try to give them an exercise movement or a sport. They're not usually excelling in both equally, and those are the people that should not be part of group fitness classes. In my experience in this industry for 30 years. Those people, look, if you know you're not able to pay attention, you have ADHD, you're not inclined to be an athlete and just pick up on things really fast. It's important that you have somebody who constantly watches you, stops you every single repetition if need be, not be part of group training, and make it something that's considered easy, and as if you're part of a class, you're going to get a lot of benefit from it, because a lot of people just don't. And so that's the danger of that, and disadvantage.
Yeah, I would say both extremes need to avoid this. The person like you're talking about, that has the ADHD that can't concentrate, would be distracted by it. Also, there's the super social person, the opposite of what I think you're talking about, the person that's just the social butterfly. And when they get in these group settings or these social settings of working out, it's more about being social than it is working out. So be social on social time. Work out for work, do a more efficient workout when you're working out. Don't try to make working out your social time. If you're the type that has to float around and talk and interact with everybody, you're not getting.
Yeah, but Doc, you know what? You're not going to change that, number one. We can't even give them that advice, because if those people are not social there and distracting other people, then if they didn't do that, they wouldn't do anything. So
you're probably right.
Going,
That's why my first point was, it's good if that's what it takes to get you moving. Do it.
Right. And let's go to number 3 now.
Yeah.
HIIT, high intensity interval training. You and I have discussed this ad nauseum on the radio for many years. People are aware of it. There's a couple of things that I just think are never going to go out in our lifetime unless technology advances so much we take a pill and we don't have to exercise. And that is a routine of training, in particular HIIT and or burst training. So why don't you go through some of that, and I'll clean up areas that I feel may have been missing, if there are any.
Yeah, my comments on this being a trend is that it's still trending because it's real. I mean, it's as simple as that. It's not a fad. We know that the science is really strong behind it. It's just like in the 1970s and 1980s when athletes first started using weights, like football players. Football players prior to then really didn't lift weights. It was this thing that people are like, oh, well, there's this new thing. There's weight training for football players. That's the idea was that it's going to make you slow and bulky and less good at football. Well, truth is they were wrong. Weight training turned out to be great for athletes across the board, and it wasn't a trend. That's why they're still doing it today, 30 or 40 years later. It's the same with the high intensity training. If you're looking at health, fitness, fat loss, it's not going to go away. It's real. It's here to stay. It's going to be a part of everyday working out for anybody who works out for the next, like you said, 100 years until technology really changes or we evolve to be a completely different species. Do you want to talk about like specifics of what HIIT is for the people that aren't quite familiar and haven't listened to us for the last 10 years?
Yeah, so it's interesting because with HIIT training, it's where you have this burst of energy and you go all out with each exercise, and then you move to the next exercise and keep doing that with about 3 or 4 exercises, and you're out of breath the entire time. It's very intense. It's very healthy in some respects, but the caveat is it's equally as dangerous. Heart attack concerns for people who aren't as fit. Horrible form, especially when you're moving from one exercise to another. Horrible form when you're dying out on each exercise. You don't have enough energy to keep pushing yourself to have proper form. And then also working against the fight or flight system. This is the big biggie here. When we exercise, we have to identify why we are exercising with strength training. Is it to lose fat? Is it to shape your body? Is it to be better with daily active living, where you get in and out of your car, you bend over and pick something up, you put something over your shelf, you lift something heavy, and you can be safe? What is the goal for exercise? And if in all of that you say, well, I exercise to be healthy as well as all of those other things, maybe even you want to be a bodybuilder, that's fine. But doesn't health come in there as well? And if health is important to you, overall health, blood work, inflammation, preventing heart attack, so on and so on, then you may be working against your intended goal. How? Well, if you perform exercises such as circuit training or HIIT training and you keep your heart rate elevated, or even long duration training where the body wasn't designed to do that, the body was designed to run after food, run from becoming food, or walk slowly very, very long distances. If you go outside of that realm, the way we were designed, you're creating more inflammation and doing more damage. Marathon runners look crappy. They break down muscle. If you're a marathon runner, no offense, but you break down muscle. Look at your body compared to a sprinter's body. Sprinter looks like he or she is in the gym all day long, and they're not.
Right. Yeah.
So fill in those gaps, Doc.
Well, yeah, good points. I think what the main thing to take away from this is do what you said. Work out at the extreme ends of intensity, and you're going to really accomplish a lot of good. So work out by taking long walks, and then when you work out, it should be brief and it should be kind of like a sprint. It doesn't have to be a literal sprint, but it should feel like a sprint. It could be a bench press, but it needs to be an all-out, really pumping hard to complete failure, and then have somebody pull the weight up, or preferably just drop the dumbbells because you're not under a bar that's going to crush you. You don't need a spotter for that. But it needs to be really hard to get the heart rate up. And then the beautiful thing about HIIT is it allows you to come back down. It's like...
Well, no. That's the problem with HIIT. Is HIIT keeps you really high for 3 or 4 exercises, where burst training, in between every single exercise, you rest. And that's where this intensity thought process of a routines completely do this. They separate completely. One keeps your heart rate up for 3 or 4 or 5 exercises, and it goes for minutes, where burst training makes you rest after you're going all out. Let's explain all out for a moment. When you say all out, some people may think, when you talk about bench press, as heavy as you possibly can bench press, and that's not true. All out, what Dr. Webster and I are saying is for about 45 seconds, maybe even up to a minute. So many years ago, I would come up with all these crazy routines when I would work out. I had minute sets, I had 50 rep sets, I had heavyweight training days. And what these consisted of, well, heavyweight is self-explanatory, but 50 reps were, you put again, we'll stick with bench press. You put a certain amount of weight and you would press it, let's say 15 times, whatever. You can't do any more, but you have 35 more reps to perform. So you have spotters taking weight off, peeling it off so you can keep moving to get to the number 50. We had minute sets. Minute sets, you had to pick a weight and keep moving with that weight without removing any weights. You had to just move for 1 minute, all out, everything you had. These were my rules, if you will. And so after that 1 minute, my friend would go, then my next other friend would go, and I would wind up resting for about 2.5 or 3 minutes so I could then explode and go all out again. And so there's the separation between burst training and HIIT training, and that's extremely important for people to know.
So you're calling what you did burst training, not HIIT training?
Absolutely not HIIT training, because HIIT training keeps you moving 3 or 4 exercises, and like I said, or 5. And you and I both know that it's detrimental at times, could be, and also work against you. 3 different things I just said there. Detrimental could be and works against you if you're performing exercises for minutes at a time, because there's no way in the world you have the same explosive strength on exercise number 3, 4, or 5 as you did on number 1.
Yeah, no doubt. And I think what you're describing is more circuit style training, because when I HIIT training, high intensity interval training, it's implying that you cycle up for a brief high intensity level, and then you there's a low intensity interval where you do rest. It may not be sitting still resting, but you're maybe going from a full sprint on a treadmill at 12 to 15 miles per hour, and then dropping back down to a 3 or 4 miles per hour walk before you sprint again. So
no, it's between 3 and 5 exercises, and it's all out. You'll see these. What are these gyms that it slipped my mind? Do you work out, bro? Do you lift, bro? What are these gyms? If somebody sees CrossFit,
yeah,
CrossFit, they do HIIT training, and so then between 4 or 5 exercises, what do they do? In some of these cross training classes, they go run. There's no rest. That's not a rest. That's like when you go to yoga and they tell you to do down dog for a rest. That's not a rest. It burns the crap out of my shoulders.
Well, I agree. You don't want to do that. You want to do intervals with rest in between. No doubt about it. There's a lot of good.
So expand upon why.
It's compatible with
why what I said.
It's compatible with our basic physiology. It helps boost our anabolic hormones, which are the things that help us build muscle and build bone. It reduces, once you're done doing it at least, it reduces your catabolic or your stress hormones like cortisol. It does stimulate them initially when you're doing the exercise. All exercise does, but the way you do it and then you do it to failure, it actually trains your body to say, okay, I ran from the danger, or I fought the danger off, and I lived to tell about it. So therefore, I don't need this stress response any longer, and it will shut that response off. Your cortisol levels come down. That never happens when you take a long jog, by the way. Your brain knows that there wasn't the requisite amount of intensity or rapid enough movement of the joints, of the spine especially, but all of the joints, to fight or run for your life. If you're jogging, you don't get enough rapid movement. So your brain knows this, and it never shuts off that stress response. But there's a lot more to it. It's good for your triglycerides. It's good for your blood sugar. It's good for your insulin levels. It's good for all these things. If you're trying to do keto, then pairing that with a high intensity exercise where you get a whole lot of muscle burn can make keto a lot more efficient, because it's doing the same thing as far as your blood sugar and your insulin levels are concerned.
Right. And I wrote a burst training article at the bottom. So once this is posted on YouTube, we'll have a link to YouTube on my Facebook, and you can see all about burst training. I wrote it probably 15 years ago, and it's not going to change anytime soon, actually in our lifetime. Why? Because what Dr. Webster and I are talking about, our fight or flight system, the way we were built, our physiology does not change, won't change. Therefore, we have to perform exercise routines that work with it, in alignment with it, not against it, to gain the benefit that we seek. I don't care if you want to be a bodybuilder, powerlifter, just want to be skinny, fit, whatever your intended goal is. The best way to get there and the fastest way to get there is through a burst training routine. Come up really high, all out, everything you have, exercise, rest, completely rest, then go again. Not all out, go to the next exercise, the next exercise. Yeah, you might think you're being really good, but it's working against your fight or flight system. Go ahead, Doug.
Yeah, you'll find that when you do this, every single one of your sets or your bursts, it's the same thing. Every single one is very efficient and you get a lot out of it, as opposed to what you're talking about where you do one and then you rest little or none and go do something else and then do something else. That's how an NBA basketball player has to train or a soccer player has to train, because that's their sport. Their sport is constantly going at an 80% level and then burst to 100% from time to time real quickly. So they have to be able to do it. They have to be able to go for 15 or 20 or 30 minutes at a time. But that's not what equates to the best fitness or the best health or the best outcomes for most people, unless you're training for that particular type of sport.
So the next one on the fitness trends, 6 fitness trends for 2019 is fitness programs for older adults. I know if anybody's watching me from school, from New Jersey days, many, many years ago, we are older now. We're in our 50s, late 40s. And there are a lot of companies capitalizing on the desire to remain independent as we age. So there are exercise routines that are specific for active daily living routines or lifestyle, right? Like I mentioned earlier, there are people who just want to bend down and pick up the grocery carts or the groceries from the ground without pulling their back, or bend over and get the newspaper out when they open their front door without hurting their back or their legs or having all these problems, or say, oh, every time they get down on the ground or go to get up again and say, oh, I'm getting old. No, there's no reason for you to be fat when you're old, and there's no reason for you to be weak when you're old. It's a point where we manage our hormones. So get blood analysis. We're managing our time through prioritizing our own health. That means exercising. All right. There's no excuse for anybody not to exercise. So, which takes us into the next one, unless you want to say something about that, Doc.
Well, I just think that it's very clear that there's a reason why this is becoming a trend now, is because the baby boomers, which are, from what I understand, they consider born between 46 and 64. So those people now are 55 to 73 years old. That's a huge generation of people who are now moving into or are already into their elderly cycle of life. So those people are not like their parents. They don't want to just gradually drift off into old age. They're trying to fight it. These people are fighting it, and they want to stay mobile. They want to stay active. And so you have to have a different program for a 65-year-old who hasn't exercised in 30 or 40 years than you would me or you. Has to be different.
Right.
To be tailored for their bodies and for their desires.
So David just asked where my burst training article is. It's going to be, once my assistant loads all of this to YouTube, it'll be sent to my 21-day body makeover page on Facebook. You'll be able to click on that. You'll see all this information. All these trends are there. Dr. Webster and I will be on the video, of course, and at the very bottom, you'll see my burst training article. So it leads me into the next one, Doc, after I talked about remaining independent and staying active and having time to exercise, and that's body weight training.
Yeah.
You have no excuse about time, where you're located, or what equipment you have, because you have your body, you will travel, right? You've got your equipment.
Very true. I always tell people that my patients are always talking to me, well, I'm going on vacation. I don't have the cable crossover and the high-tech hip sled. And I was like, so what? You have a beach. You have stairs. You have a floor. You have a floor and a body. You can do weight training or high-intensity training or whatever type of training you want to do. Just be a little bit creative about it. So,
well, I think it comes down to priority. You know me with psychology. Now, let's get into the mind of someone. Your exercise doesn't begin with weight loss. It begins with your why, right? So if your why is large enough, then you make yourself or your why a priority and you do it. You and I as professionals have been beating our heads against the wall for so many years to try to get people to do X, whatever X is. Less food, different type of food, exercise, this type of exercise, whatever that is to take care of themselves. But it will never, ever, ever, ever sink in until that person is ready. So, going back to some of my earlier videos, if you go to just scroll down my page at 21 Day Body Makeover on Facebook, or even the YouTube channel, you can see those older videos that talk about something that, again, in my opinion, will never change, and that is the psychology of how you make yourself a priority, make this a priority. Just even if it's done, let me back up for a moment. This is really important. When we talked about burst training earlier, I developed, came across, was part of burst training, whatever you want to use as far as the verbiage is concerned, many years ago when I was a personal trainer. And that was, gosh, 21 years ago that I was in that field. During that time, I was booking about 60 to 70 hours a week, 7 days a week of personal training. The last thing I wanted to do was be in a gym when I was finished training. So what I would do is I would capitalize on the people who were 15 or 20 minutes late. And when they were late, I would work out as hard as I could until they got there. I mean, all out. And I noticed that my body wouldn't change. I was already super lean, so I wasn't gaining any fat. I felt good. I got my workout in. And so it made me recognize through that really intense training for very short periods of time that I can do the same for my clients. And the clients that were okay with paying me my $300 per session and only doing a 20, 25-minute training, and recognize that they benefit from it, recognize it's not about the amount of time we are together, rather it's the quality and type of training to give me the results I'm looking for, whatever they were looking for. And that's why burst has always been so popular, and I've been doing it and talking about it and written exercise videos on this. That's part of my 21-day body makeover routine for over 20 years. So we've come full forward now, Doc.
Right. There are studies going based on what you're saying. There are studies that look at a workout and how effective that workout can be if you took that exact same workout and broke it up into 2 or 3 or 4 different parts and spread them out through the day. So for instance, I try to get my clients, my patients, whatever you want to call them, just to do somewhere between 4 to 8 bursts per day. I think that's a reasonable number. There's studies that show you can get great results on 3 bursts 3 times a week. That's 9 total per week. So I just try to push them, say, okay, maybe 4 a day on average. That's more than the studies show you need. And it's also really pushing the limit on the low end. So if you're really good, maybe 8, but somewhere between there is fine. So they say, well, okay, I'll do 4 a day, but I don't have time to do 4 all at once. That would take me like a whole, 16 minutes maybe. I say, okay, if you don't have 16 minutes, just do 2 in the morning and 2 right when you get home from work before dinner, and you'll get the same benefits that you would from doing all 4 of those together. They're worried about that because they don't feel like they're working out as hard, just doing 2 at a time and then 2 at a time later. But you're still doing the same amount of work. And in fact, you're fresh for every one of those bursts. So you're really stimulating the muscles as much, maybe a little bit more than if you would do them all back to back to back to back. So you get great.
Right. So what I want to share about this for anybody who might be confused, when we talk about burst, earlier I mentioned bench press. Dr. Webster mentioned it also. Think about getting on a recumbent bike also, okay? So you have the bike and you start and you're all warmed up for about 3, 4, 5, 6 minutes, whatever that is. And then you put the tension on the highest tension you possibly can, and you move as fast as you possibly can with your feet for 30 seconds, 20 seconds.
Good luck.
Yeah. I mean, as fast as you can, highest tension, and you're super out of breath. But what you do, just to keep the bike on so it doesn't turn off, is you put the tension all the way down to level 1. So let's say you do those 20 or 30 seconds, take the tension down to level 1, and barely pedal, barely. I say this to people, and for some reason, they keep going super fast.
It's the equivalent of walking. It's the equivalent of a slow walk.
Yeah, only pedal as fast as you can to keep the bike on. I mean, barely pedal. Keep your hands on the heart rate monitor. Watch your heart rate come down. I bring mine down to about 119 beats per minute, and then I burst again.
Before you crank back up?
Yeah.
Really? I didn't realize they go below 100.
I couldn't know because I never get below 100. I mean, I'm up to like 135, 138 on my bursts. I break them down. I'll come down to like 115, 119, and I burst again.
Your tolerance is so minimal. That's you. That's your fitness level. Because a lot of people, when you crank up on a bike like that, if you turn the tension up and go as fast as you can for 20 to 30 seconds till you can't go anymore, they're pushing 155, 160, 170 easy. And I'm saying, okay, let it come down, let it come down. You should be able to speak without huffing and puffing. Your heart rate should be close to your resting rate. It's not going to get quite to full resting rate, but that's the idea, is that you get back to close to normal before you do that next burst, because then that next burst, you'll have the energy and the ability to do a really efficient burst. If you went too quickly, then you wouldn't get nothing out of it.
So that's a very good point. My fitness level, because I've been fit for so long, I'm able to talk to you normally at 119, 115. It's like I'm bored at that point. I would have to stop and rest for a long time. Or I don't know how long, but it's too long for my patience. So other people, and I've even recommended this, like Drew just said on here online, I lost 30 pounds in 6 weeks on George's burst training routine. Thank you for mentioning that, Drew. I appreciate that, because it is so unbelievably beneficial if you do it if you comply, if you do it correctly. So, and then the last one here, Doc.
Hey, George, let's talk a little bit more about the body weight training. I don't think we really got into body weight specifically. We talked about spin, we talked about burst, but let's talk a little bit about what this means and why body weight training is an important trend right now. Back in the 90s, when I was really first getting into this personally, I read, or actually bought a book from a guy named Leo Costa Jr. I've talked about him in the past. He was an all-natural Mr. Universe. He was the first person I ever heard talk about low carbohydrate dieting. He referred to Atkins because apparently Atkins had already done some stuff before then, but this was like 1991. Most people had not heard of Atkins or low carbohydrate dieting at the time, but he got ripped eating tons of fat, just like what you're doing now with the ketogenic diet. Well, he also did a lot of studying in Bulgaria and looked at some of the research that they were doing with their Olympic athletes. And I don't want to get too much into that, but the things that he knew in 1991 are things that we're now proving to be true in the mainstream media or mainstream scientific community today. He was so far ahead of his time. But one of the things he talked about was how much brain activity it takes to perform a certain activity will directly determine how effective and how much muscle and strength you will gain from that activity. So he used the analogy of, if you want to go on a thrill ride, you have a choice of two extremes. You have the teacup ride at the county fair where you just sit there and go around this little circle. Or you have an F-16 pilot taking you on a thrill ride, which is the other end. He said, you want to make your brain go nuts and work hard while you're working your muscles hard. So don't lock into a machine like a leg extension machine. You can work out so hard. You can work your quads so hard on that machine and go to complete failure and exhaust your quads. You will get not nearly as much benefit to your quads as if you do something like a squat, where you're using a lot more muscle.
Millions of people struggle with sugar cravings, excess fat, overeating, cholesterol issues, and high blood pressure. Every diet created in the past 30+ years has been too restrictive, bland, or fails to meet your desires. There's a solution steeped in evidence-based science dating back to 1920, and it's not changing anytime soon. 360° Health created the Keto Cleanse to be the easiest and best-tasting solution without feeling restricted by calories. Their Keto Cleanse forces your body to use fat for energy, even if you don't exercise daily. Recipes include cheese, meat, guacamole, and other favorite foods to help balance hormones, blood pressure, and cholesterol with the science to prove it. Tim Tebow, Dr. Oz, Dr. Osborne, and many other doctors discuss the health benefits of keto. Check out their videos at 21daybodymakeover.com. Click on the yellow keto button now, and for a limited time, receive free shipping. Receive 4 professional-grade supplements, a cookbook, and amazing desserts such as cheesecake and brownies. That's 21daybodymakeover.com. A
lot more complex, but the main thing he said is you're moving your body through space. When you do that, your brain starts engaging to make sure you don't fall over and collapse. Forward, backwards, rotational, tilting. There's a lot of ways that your body can collapse when you start moving it through space. So your brain has to coordinate all these other muscles to make sure that you can work your quads properly, and your quads will get more growth out of it, and you will get more growth out of it.
So let's share this with the lay who we may have lost, because I understand you. When Dr. Webster says in space, we're talking about just standing up, and let's say you squat up and down with your own body weight. That's in space, because you have to balance forward, backward, sideways, and one side and the other side. If you're in a squat rack or a machine and you go up and down, that's a fixed path of motion. You're not going to go forward, backward, or side to side. You're only going up and down.
But it's still,
the more muscles you incorporate, the more it challenges your mind. Go ahead, Doc.
but on a squat machine, let's say a Smith machine, you're still moving your body through space vertically. There's still some instability in that your spine can move forward and backwards on that. It's not as good as a barbell by any means. So he talks about the progression of the worst being where you're completely fixed and your body's not moving through space at all, and it's an isolation movement. That's your leg extension. Then he said you're fixed and you're doing a compound movement and you're not moving your body through space. That's a leg press or a hip sled. And then you have the hack squat, which is sometimes on the same machine, but you're actually moving your body up with the weight, but you're still in a more of a fixed position. That's better than the leg press because you're moving your body through space. It engages your brain more. And then you have the totally unstable movements like the squat, where you're moving your body through space. It's a compound movement and you have freedom in all of the different ranges of motion. That's the ultimate when you start talking about brain engagement, therefore the impact on your muscles. That's why you see the best power lifters, the best bodybuilders in the world, they're doing squats to make their flat quads big. They're not doing a lot of leg extensions.
Right. But let's not scare people. Squats are extremely healthy for you, or you're always squatting down. You're always deadlifting. Every time you get in and out of your car, that's part of a deadlift. Yeah. If you knew what a deadlift was, watch somebody get in and out of the car, unless they're getting out of a truck that's on a suspension. That's a different story, right? You're just falling out of the car. Lunges are also important, provided you're doing them the proper way. So if you can do these things, and if you can't and you're older, keep in mind, so many people don't recognize. You walk into a gym and all of a sudden these trainers want to tell you what to do and how to help you out, not recognizing the importance of some people need to train before they train. You have to be conditioned to actually train. You're not even being conditioned properly. Why are you going to train? What does that mean? That means your iliotibial band, your IT band. There are other certain parts of the shoulder that might be frozen. Maybe you have range of motion issues. The last thing you should be doing is going into a gym and working out. You need to do some training before you can even train. And if you're not assessed properly, then you may hurt yourself. And then all of a sudden you think, well, shoot, I wasn't getting hurt in the first place. I started working out and I got hurt. Yeah, because you weren't assessed properly and you didn't go through the right protocol before you began to train. So let's get to the last one. Number 6 on the top 10 trends for 2019, functional training. This is what we're getting at.
There you go.
Burpees are functional training. Body squats, no weight, your own body squat, right? Specifically for performing, improving balance, coordination, endurance, right? We want to help people with deadlifts. Girls are so afraid of deadlifts, but you want to talk about having a nice butt? Do deadlifts. If you have a very weak back, don't do deadlifts right away. Be conditioned before you train. Doc, you should probably, being a chiropractor, you should probably elaborate on that.
Well, I mean, form is everything when it comes to something like a deadlift. When you do a deadlift, if you're super out of shape, you might be able to get some benefit from doing deadlift with just your body weight. But anyone who has any kind of strength whatsoever is going to have to load themselves up on a deadlift. So a deadlift is basically where there's weight on the floor and you're picking it up off the floor and standing up straight. You need to understand the form to do it right, but that's just a simple, if you don't know what a deadlift is. Now,
let's look on YouTube for a proper deadlift.
Look on YouTube, but get the training from a professional, like any kind of personal trainer would be helpful if you don't know what you're doing. You have to when you're doing something like a deadlift or a squat. The thing is, if your back is weak, first of all, priority number 1 needs to be to strengthen your back. It needs not be to lose weight necessarily. It needs not be to get in shape and look like you have 6-pack abs. It needs to be to strengthen your spine first, because you're never going to be efficient at doing any of the other type of exercises that are going to make you reach those other goals of being fit, being healthy, having 6-pack abs. You're never going to be able to reach that unless you have a strong, stable spine. So that's number 1. But if once
wait. I want to expand upon that for a moment. So I love to give visuals, right? Yeah. I did this for so many years on the radio, so I'm used to doing that. So think of a tree. The trunk of the tree is the strongest part of the tree. Then you have the branches. The branches are your arms and legs, right? If the tree is weak, or if the trunk is weak, then the branches can't extend out as far as they want, as thick as they want, because it'll fall over, right? So it's the same thing with the roots. That helps to keep the tree stable, but they go out, spread out really, really, really far, and the roots aren't as thick as the trunk. The trunk is the thickest part. Identifying the core of your body is not your abs. It is not your lower back. The core of your body incorporates all of your abdominal muscles, your lower back, all your back muscles, but let's say lower back muscles, and all the muscles that surround your hips. That is considered your core. And if you're not working all of those, you're not working your core that people talk about. So go ahead, Doc.
Right, and without core strength, then you can't do the movements that make our arms and legs strong and make us functional. By the way, you have to have the strong core, so then you can do something like a squat. I like a squat when you're talking about functional training here, George. I like a squat where you're holding something right here like a medicine ball. You squat up to full extension with your leg, and then you take the ball above your head as if you're placing the ball on a shelf. You don't have to literally place it on a shelf. There's no reason for that, but you put it up there because when you need to lift a box and put it on your shelf in your closet, you're going to have the leg strength and then the shoulder and arm strength to do that type of movement. It's also great for building a lot of muscle on your body. It's great for stamina. It's great for endurance. It's great for doing things like burst training because you're working tons of muscle, which means you're using tons of energy to do a movement like that. So those are the type of movements that we want to be able to do ultimately to get more functional in your activities of daily living. But you have to have the core stable and strong before you can even do any kind of squat whatsoever. Don't even think about doing a squat or an overhead press until your core is strong.
So look up Dr. McGill's Big Three.
Yes.
We talked about this. If you want to strengthen your core, the lowest level of the way to begin to do that is with his Big Three exercises. And you should do those if you're not somebody who exercises regularly or for quite a while. You should do that for about 3 weeks before you even start strength training.
Yeah.
Just do his Big Three. Doc, why don't you run through them? We know about planks and bird dog, all that, but why don't you show us some of those, what they are, talk us through them.
Yeah, well, you just named two of them. There's the plank. When he does his Big Three, he's doing a side plank. So you're laying on your side, kind of on your elbow, and you're basically stabilizing the muscles on the side of your abdominal wall. Right?
Your forearm.
Yeah, exactly. Your elbow and forearm, you're putting the weight on there. So you're doing a side bridge or a side plank. I also like to throw in the regular front plank to his Big Three. So you got the front plank and the side plank. You have the bird dog where you're basically on your hands and knees and you just extend your right arm out with a fist because it engages your shoulder more, and your left leg. So you're extending right arm and left leg at the same time. So you're balanced on your left hand and your right knee. That's where your balance point are. You're wobbly, so you're working on your muscles that are basically keeping you from torquing and twisting, but you're also flattening your back at the same time. You're working on your abdominals, your low back muscles, and those twisting muscles all at the same time when you do that. Do these for 10 seconds and then go back to rest for just a second or two, and then 10 seconds more, and then back to rest for a second, 10 seconds more. Repeat that 5 times, and then rest, and then do the other side. That's how he likes to do this. And then the last one is a curl up.
Wait, I want to just add to that. There are a couple of things that I've mentioned in this video, and I've done this many years on the radio. Sometimes people don't absorb all of it, and so I like to emphasize certain things. When you're performing the exercise that Dr. Webster just talked about,
Millions of people struggle with sugar cravings, excess fat, overeating, cholesterol issues, and high blood pressure. Every diet created in the past 30 years has been too restrictive, bland, or fails to meet your desires. There's a solution steeped in evidence-based science dating back to 1920, and it's not changing anytime soon. 360 Degree Health created the Keto Cleanse to be the easiest, best-tasting solution without feeling restricted by calories. Their Keto Cleanse forces your body to use fat for energy, even if you don't exercise daily. Recipes include cheese, meat, guacamole, and other favorite foods to help balance hormones, blood pressure, and cholesterol with the science to prove it. Tim Tebow, Dr. Oz, Dr. Osborne, and many other doctors discuss the health benefits of keto. Check out their videos at 21daybodymakeover.com. Click on the yellow keto button. Now for a limited time, receive free shipping. Receive 4 professional-grade supplements, cookbook, amazing desserts, such as cheesecake and brownies. That's 21daybodymakeover.com.
the bird dog. If you're unstable and it's hard for you to hold your hand up in front of you or your leg out straight out behind you, and you find it's difficult to do, don't get frustrated because every time you try, you're actually working out. You're not supposed to be able to do it perfect where you hold your arm extended all the way in front of you and your opposite leg extended all the way in front of you for 10 seconds without moving. Because if you could, you wouldn't need it.
That's right.
So,
don't do exercises that you're already perfect at. It doesn't make any sense. Do exercises that make you struggle, because then you'll adapt to that new or unfamiliar stress. Exactly right.
So go ahead and go to the third one.
The third one is a curl up, and it looks, when you look at it, it looks a lot like you're doing a crunch, but it is modified, and it's not the same as a crunch. So in the curl up, you're putting your hands below your low back to give your lumbar support, and then you're doing kind of like a crunch, but you're really just pulling your chest off of the ground, and you're not trying to crunch really. It's a little bit different. So you're supported in your lumbar, and you raise your chest off the ground, and you hold that for 10 seconds, just like with the rest, and then you go back to rest.
So hold on. So I have to interrupt. I just realized I have low battery mode, and we're going to lose everybody.
Okay.
So people can look up the big three exercises from Dr. Stuart McGill. He's a professor of spine biomechanics. Make sure you share this video with all your friends so we can get exposure from everyone. My website is 21daybodymakeover.com. Dr. Webster is CompleteHealthDallas.com. Sorry, but my phone's about to go bye-bye, and I don't want to have everybody be cut off last minute. But anyway, good show, Doc. We'll do this here in the near future.
You got it. Good to see you, George.
Bye, everybody.